Would you like to learn how to paint some blossom trees with acrylic paints? This is a step-by-step tutorial of just how to do that. I'm Karen Rice and welcome to my acrylic painting channel. First of all, I have put a layer of pink paint over this canvas board, and the canvas board measures 12 by 10 inches, and I've let it dry. And now I'm drawing with my brush, small round brush, just a little bit of the horizon and the path into the distance. I'm just marking in now the line of the trees as well. So I've just mixed up a little bit of cobalt blue and some white paint, and I'm using a flat brush, and I'm just painting this wet on dry onto the canvas. Just make sure you put plenty of paint on your brush, especially if you're a beginner in acrylics. Be generous with the paint. So I'm working this down to the horizon now, getting plenty of paint, really sort of getting this lovely light horizon, so it's stronger blue at the top and lighter at the bottom. It gives it some nice depth to your painting as well. I've mixed up some yellow and blue, and all the details of the materials I'm using will be in the description below, but any green will do as well, so just use what you have. I'm painting this with my 1/2 inch flat brush in the grass area on the right hand side, and I'm doing that on the same on the left hand side, just blocking in that colour. Don't worry too much at this stage getting everything right. And now I'm just putting in a little bit more of an ochre colour into that green just to warm it up a little bit, and I'm painting this sort of line of trees at the back, and I'm using the little flat brush here. The sky is a little bit wet, don't worry about that, but if it's dried, it's absolutely fine as well. Remember, when you're starting out, just enjoy the process. You'll find that you will get better just with practice. I put a little bit of yellow in that green now just to brighten up some of the colour, varying the tones, getting the lighter bits more near the horizon and that in the background there, just blending as I go. Just enjoy it. It's really lovely using acrylic paints. They're so forgiving. And when you find they're getting a bit sticky and they're not working as well, let your painting dry and then you can work on top afterwards. And the great thing is, if you make any mistakes, you can just paint over the top. I'm using a little bit of ochre now on this path. It's great doing a path like this because it gives you lots of depth. It's 1 point perspective here, so it leads your eye in. So I'm just covering this here. Remember, just get plenty of paint on your brush and just spreading that down there. I've added a little bit of white to that colour just to create a sort of more of a creamy look on the path. If you look at the reference photograph, it's quite light, the path. So what I'm doing now is I'm adding a little bit of blue and a touch of the purpley sort of colour, and I'm actually painting some dark trees onto the horizon. My paint is still a little bit wet. Again, if it's dried off, don't worry. So I'm just putting these background trees in here and varying the colours and blending as I go. Because the canvas is quite small, it's okay. I've got plenty more time, and I love blending with my fingers as well. So have a go at that. It's such fun to do. So I've actually dried off the painting now, and I'm actually marking in some of the foliage for the tree. So I've used some pink and white paint, and I'm using my sort of 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch flat brush, and I'm just sort of swirling in this pink paint just to get it on the sky area. But I want to leave some of the blue sky as well, so don't cover everything, but it's just to mark in this foliage, this pink foliage here, pink blossom foliage that is. And at the top there, I've made the colour a little bit darker because that's the nearest to us. That's right above the photographer's head, and the paler tones are in the distance. And I'm putting a little bit of pale green in there on the right hand side because there's obviously some green foliage. Even though there's lots of blossom, there are some leaves in there as well. Now, this is a fun thing. Don't worry if you haven't got this, but I'm actually stippling with a stippling brush, just putting on some paint. So it's almost like an impressionist style here, and it's good fun to do. So just blocking that in there, but you could use Q-tips as well for this, anything that's going to make little dotty sort of marks. Or if you've got an old hog hair brush, you could actually just sort of cut it and sort of makes a bit of a flat edge, and then have fun with that. Or use a sponge as well, whatever you like, whatever you fancy. As you can see there, I've used my sponge to paint that. Now I'm putting in some of the trees, and I'm painting it with a very sort of dark brown with black, whatever you've got that creates a really nice dark colour. I've swapped to a round brush and I'm painting in now, really taking my time with these branches and really looking at the reference photograph and painting them in. So just take your time and enjoy it. So as you can see there, I'm just finishing off some of those very smaller marks in the distance to make it look like tree trunks in the distance and branches. And now I'm painting some of the grasses wet on dry using my flat brush and sort of just stippling and painting on to create some texture. And you can just start really sort of playing around with colour mixing there. So I'm using some blues and yellows and just getting a variety of different colours and having fun with it, you know, just seeing what happens. You can just learn as you go. And what I'm doing here is I'm using a small round brush and just sort of detailing the edge of the path so it really leads your eye into the picture, and just sort of getting sort of smaller marks as you go off into the distance there. And I'm just putting a little bit of grasses under the trees just to give a little bit of detail as well. All these little tricks you can use to bring your painting to life. And I'm actually using my sponge now. It's a natural sponge, and I'm sponging on some light green foliage to create some lovely textures. And just make sure you keep getting fresh paint each time. And obviously this is on dry pink, on the dry paint, so don't worry, it's not going to pick up any of the pink. And what I'm doing now is I've mixed up some violet into my blossom colour and painting some shadow colours on those blossoms with my little sponge there, and I'm just putting a little bit of light just in the distance there. And if you look at the reference photograph, it's a little bit lighter, and I'm just blending with my finger as I go there, and doing that on the left hand side as well, and just putting a little bit more in that sort of, you know, sort of right on the edge of the horizon there, just to bring that to life. Now here's a fun thing, I'm just using the side of my flat brush and I'm painting in some of the blossoms on the ground. Now I know it doesn't exist in the photograph and it's a little bit of artistic license, but it kind of brings it to life a bit more and makes that sort of that grass area look more interesting, and it's fun to do. I'm adding a little bit of white to that blossom colour, and I'm just putting a few little highlights. In acrylics we work dark to light, so you put your dark, your mid-tones on, and then your light tones, just sort of giving it a little bit of sparkle there as well. I'm using my flat brush. I'm just popping a little bit that on the edge of the path. It's just to really sort of finesse and finish off with those little highlights and details, and popping that a little bit in the distance as well. I've rinsed off my sponge and I'm now actually using some white paint with a tiny touch of pink, just to put a few highlights in the blossoms just here and there. If you find it's getting a little bit splodgy, don't press so hard with the sponge. You want to create that pattern and texture that the sponge can give you. If you haven't got a natural sponge, you can actually use a scourer to do this. If you tear it so it's got a nice sort of fluffy edge, you can actually use that as well. So I'm just putting a little bit on the path area as well using my sponge. You can get very carried away creating all this wonderful texture, but it's a lovely thing for beginners to do. And if you've been painting a while, it's a great thing as well just to experiment with. I'm using a favourite technique of mine, spattering. I've mixed up a little bit of water into the pinky white colour and I'm spattering it sort of wet on dry using a little round brush and just giving it a really firm tap with my index finger. And now I've mixed up quite a dark purpley colour, blue with some pink, and I'm putting in some shadows going across the path. Now I know this is not in the reference photograph, but it really brings this painting to life because I'm sort of imagining the lights coming from the left, so your shadows will be going to the right. So it's quite a watered down sort of cool shadow colour, and I'm just popping it in the distance as well. It's amazing how it can bring this painting to life and make it look more 3D. And I put a larger shadow going across the foreground as well. One last little spatter just to finish off and give this painting a little bit of sparkle. I really hope you've enjoyed this demonstration and it has inspired you to have a go at acrylic painting. It's very forgiving and you can paint over your canvas if you don't like it and have another go. Remember, it's the practice that's the most important thing for you to improve and to gain confidence. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and you will get updates of my latest videos. If you've got any comments or questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.